thank you so much for joining us, and today's presentation is very interesting because we'll be looking into the latest development of V-Ray for 3ds Max, as well as in the beginning I'll walk you through a brief V-Ray history. Because V-Ray has been here for a while, and at one point we lose track of how many things have been added, so it's really nice to look back and see actually how much the software has evolved. And all of this evolution is thanks to our customers, thanks to you, because we like to get inspired and we like to listen to what people have to say, and in the end implement this in V-Ray in order to give you a better workflow. So I'll start with this and then continue with the new features of V-Ray 3.5. And V-Ray 3.5 itself is a very interesting service pack. As you may know, with each version of V-Ray, we continue after the release to release a few service packs, which are free of upgrades, and those upgrades add many new features. And the latest one is 3.5, where we have quite a few optimizations, not only when it comes to speed and GPU rendering, but also when it comes to more versatile tools and materials. So like they say, stay tuned, and let's start with the whole overview. And as I mentioned, over the years, V-Ray has developed a lot thanks to its customers. And nowadays, when it comes to architecture, 92 of the top 100 companies in the world use V-Ray on a daily basis. This is not only brings us the joy of seeing our product being out there in the universe, but also helps us to develop a lot, since we keep communication with those companies and improve based on that. But V-Ray started as an architectural renderer, and many people to this day make the mistake of saying that V-Ray is still an architectural renderer, which is not true, because nowadays V-Ray is used widely in many industries. And here, for example, is a list of wonderful companies that use V-Ray for advertising and automotive design. And the results they are achieving are amazing. But from architecture to product design to automotive design, there are many movies done with V-Ray as well. Lately, many of the Hollywood productions and Bollywood and so on we see out there, a lot of them have something V-Ray inside. This is just an example of movies used V-Ray in the last years. I'm sure you've seen at least, let's say, 5 of them, but maybe more, since we're speaking about Hollywood at its finest. And all of this brings us to this day. And in this day, we are super proud and happy to announce that Vlado, our main developer, the person behind the V inside V-Ray, he has received an Oscar in this year's Academy Awards. So this achievement goes to everybody that helps us improve over the years, and we cannot be more proud of Vlado for this. And in the end, V-Ray is now not only production proven, but also, Oscar certified, you may say. And V-Ray continues to evolve. So here is an interesting list. Since we started in 2006 with 1.5, with service packs included, and there was V-Ray even before that. This is the one point we decided to start this graph on. Now you can see that after 3.0, with each service pack, there's so many features being added. And this does not stop. Now with 3.5, you get even more. So if you download V-Ray 3.5 for Macs, even now, okay, wait for the webinar to be finished and then download it. So if you download it from chaosgroup.com, even now you get the full more than 190 features included inside, which makes it quite versatile. I hope you are familiar with the previous service packs and what did they have to bring. In the end, of course, I'll give you some information where you can, rewind and see what has been going on with 3.3, 3.4, and so on. But the star of today is 3.5. So in 3.5, we're speaking about a few major workflow optimizations. And workflow not only in the way that they'll save you time, which, let's be honest, for everybody in the industry, if it's architecture, if it's VFX, doesn't matter, we never have enough time. And they will also ensure your work like the reasonable rendering. There are a few very, very interesting updates concerning people who render on graphics cards, on GPUs. And V-Ray is versatile. V-Ray can be CPU and GPU. It all depends on you. So just walk through what's new for the GPU particularly, and a few additional goodies. Starting with one of the things that maybe had the most hype around 3.5 being the adaptive lights. The adaptive lights is a new optimization that allows you to render scenes with many lights much faster. And maybe some of you are familiar with the probabilistic lights that were introduced in V-Ray, I think 3.0. The adaptive lights is this type of an optimization, but even better. What does adaptive lights do besides cut render time? I'll go to Chaos Group Labs, which is a web page that I strongly encourage you to go to. And here we have articles about some of the new features. This is the one about adaptive lights. And I want to show you those graphs here, which graphs pretty much explain what adaptive lights does. Imagine you have a wall, and behind this wall you have more lights, like the first picture here. Normally, if we go without any optimization, the render will sample all of the lights, meaning that even lights that are behind the wall and are not affecting the scene, or are affecting the scene, it's very small, almost unseenable percentage will be sampled. And this takes time. This takes your rendering time. So we go and optimize that, and we can use probabilistic lights. Probabilistic lights will sample a percentage of all of the lights in the scene in order to give you the same results for less time. But you can see for this graph that even though it's a percentage, some of the lights behind the wall are also sampled. And the new one, the adaptive lights, allows V-Ray to check which lights are actually affecting our point of view, which lights are actually affecting the scene we are rendering, and sample those. So this optimizes the time very much. Meaning that, of course, the more the lights in the scene, the more the optimization would be. That's why it varies depending on your scene. And you can turn this one on from, let me get a max. Okay, so in max, if you go into rendering settings, it's on by default, so just so you know. Okay, you can go to V-Ray, global switches, and adaptive lights here. So from here you can pick from between full evaluation, probabilistic lights, and adaptive lights. And I have a pre-recorded video to show you this optimization, just not to waste time with. Rendering. Okay, let me just pause on that. So you see here that without adaptive lights, with full lights evaluation, this scene renders for 15 minutes, while with adaptive lights, it renders for 7. And this is just this scene, this test. Some people have been getting 10% faster scenes, and so on. It all depends on your setup. But this is a great way of rendering faster, bigger scenes with many lights inside. Continuing from there and continuing with rendering. I don't know how many of you are familiar with RT rendering and V-Ray RT, which is our interactive render engine. But nowadays we have another improvement when it comes to interactivity, which is the interactive production render. So while rendering in production mode, with all of the features supported, with everything supported, you can have interactivity. So the moment you change something, it will change in your rendering. And from then on, the rendering will continue. And I'll show you this in Max itself. So here is my Max. And I have the scene and I'll start rendering. I'll use progressive image sampling, since in this way we'll see the image right away. Okay, my frame buffer was on my other monitor, so let's just delete this and start rendering. So this is the production rendering, as you can see here. But now I can stop this one and start from the frame buffer, the teapot with the green play button, start interactive rendering. So now you can see that this is interactive and all of the changes I'm making are instantly happening in the frame buffer itself. And of course, this is not limited to movement. Let's start applying materials to this one. Okay, I'll select the flower petals here. And apply a material to those. Okay, I got the steam as well. Let's make the steam green again. Okay, and you can see the changes instantly happening in the IPR. Let's add a material to the petals as well. Actually, I don't know if those are called petals. I think everything is petals if you ask me, so. Okay, and in this way, by using IPR, you can change the whole image and see it instantly. This is also very good if you want to use a render mask and change just a particular object or so on. And as I mentioned, absolutely everything is supported since this is production rendering. Okay, let's even hide some geometry. And now we have the whole mechanical bee going to the flower garden situation going on. Okay, this is progressive, so over time the image should get better and better, but I can stop it at any point and continue. And speaking of stopping and continuing, now V-Ray 3.5 has resumable rendering. Resumable rendering allows you to stop the image at any point of rendering, and then when you have the time, when you have the hardware available, you can continue rendering from the point you stopped. And this also works if the rendering has stopped for an unfortunate event, like maybe your electricity has stopped. So this can save your life in a way. You know how it is, you go out of the office, you can start a high quality render and just hope that in the morning when you come back to the office, everything is rendered and saved. But sometimes the electricity, let's say, can stop in the middle of the night and you come back into the office and you have nothing. So with resumable rendering, you can prevent that, or at least you can prevent it to some point, because V-Ray will save the image up to the point it's rendered, and then after this you can continue rendering from the exact same point. How this works? Okay, let's clear the frame buffer and go into settings. So from render setup, V-Ray, in the frame buffer, I'll set up the file I want to save. Okay, test resumable. resumable to, let's name it like this, save. Then after I have the file already saved, I can click on resumable rendering. You can specify an interval or leave it to 0. I'll go 0.5, which is 30 minutes, meaning that every 30 seconds, meaning that every 30 seconds V-Ray will save. And I'll pick bucket because it allows us to see much clearly the progress going on. Okay, so we have bucket rendering. By default, let's go like this and start the bucket rendering. Okay, the light cache is already calculated, and now the buckets are starting to render the image. So now, if I can leave it for as much as we like, but let's say at some point the rendering stops. You can stop it manually or something happens, you know. So I'll just, with our past 30 seconds, it has already saved. I can just go and stop the rendering. So now, next time when we open this picture, even Max may have closed, even the computer may have restarted. If I go here and press render, you can see that the buckets are starting from the point we left off. So thinking this way, you can save yourself a lot of trouble. Okay, I've went too far with the settings. This is quite a lot of sampling for this scene, but I think you get a clear idea of what's going on here. Okay, so let's continue from here. Few new materials in V-Ray 3.5 for Max. First one being the all-surface material. The all-surface material, going back to Chaos Group Labs, is Andres Langland's shader that he customly wrote, and it's getting a lot of popularity in the industry, especially when it comes to skin shading. V-Ray has a few skin shading options on its own, and now we also support the all-surface shader, especially in its use for skin. Here on this link you can read more about Andres' work and the shader itself. I want to demonstrate in Max where you can find it and how you can apply it. Let's just find a scene that's more optimized for skin. So here we have a cartoony character. Let's start rendering him. Okay, I'll use the IPR again so we see the changes right away. And opening the material browser, we can go right click, materials, V-Ray, all surface. So we applied this one to his skin. And this is how the shader works. First, let's enable subsurface scattering. And instantly we see it behind its the character's ear. So from then on, you can start modifying the all-surface material any way you like. You can see that we have 3 layers of SSS, 2 reflection ones, and of course diffuse and generals. So from here on, you can control it any way you like. Let's change a few colors. I personally like to make them very, very bright, so they are super visible to people when I want to show them what do I mean by subsurface scattering. So we can go like this, get a bigger radius for this one, and we can even remove the second layer not to be visible. Okay, so just like this, now he looks like he's glowing in the dark. You can basically modify the material to your preferences. All of this is supporting textures, so you can apply a custom texture like we have in the original material here. Here you can see we have a texture for diffuse, reflection, SSS1, and diffuse, bump, and bump. So, just so you know, now you can use the all-surface material for skin in V-Ray as well. I can show you the original rendering, the finished, let's say, rendering of this fellow. Since he's actually a very interesting character, he is wearing typical Bulgarian clothing, very old, of course, style. And here you see the shader in action in a more realistic kind of a environment. Okay, realistic to one point, of course. And continuing from here, another new set of materials, actually the MDL materials. The MDL materials are NVIDIA's universal materials, which are cross-platform, which makes them very easy to implement in a more complex and long pipeline. So now MDL materials are supported in V-Ray, and even V-Ray itself comes with a few installed. Basically, what you need to do is go materials, materials, V-Ray, MDL. Here you can load the file name. When you install V-Ray, itself, you get a few MDL materials which can be found here in Program Files, Case Group, V-Ray version MDL. And on our docs page, we have a view of all of them. So here you can go and check the MDL materials that come with V-Ray. And of course, you can implement your own at any point. Okay, so this is just the preview, and again, you can find them in Program Files, Chaos Group, V-Ray version, MDL. Another material optimization is the glossy Fresnel. The glossy Fresnel basically changes the way that surfaces reflect in a way that it of course changes the Fresnel. Sometimes when using different values for Fresnel, you can see this not so realistic shining around the edges of the object or so. And nowadays, with the glossy Fresnel, this shining has been removed in order to make the materials look much more realistic. Of course, you can pick if you want to use it or not. It will be on by default. But to illustrate what I mean, this is without glossy Fresnel, this picture. So you can see, especially if you look into the lower left corner and right lower corner, you can see that the materials are quite shining in a way, and this is with glossy Fresnel. So switching between those two, with glossy Fresnel on, it's much more realistic. Okay, so without and on again. Okay, just to give you the comparison between those two. And the settings for that, if you want to change it, by default to be on as I mentioned, but if you create a V-Ray material, okay, material, here it is in options, you have glossy Fresnel on or off depending on your preference. So from materials, let's go into the big picture, and by big picture I mean the really big picture, being the virtual reality. Virtual reality has been a hype for quite a while, and many people are discovering the magic of not only looking at renders, but putting on a headset and being able to be part of the visualization, to be inside of the visualization, and actually feel it, actually get attached to it. So now with V-Ray 3.5 for Macs, you can connect an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive device. Basically, you need a device that's connected with a cable to your computer because the amount of data that's being transferred is quite huge. But you can connect an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive and render directly in 360 virtual reality, straight from Macs to the headset. This is how this one goes, and I have a pre-recorded video of that. Basically, you transfer the whole information directly to the Oculus Rift in this case. The RT is rendering interactively, so if you make some changes, you see them in the headset. And you can imagine your client, for example, sitting next to you with the headset on his or her head, and they go like, okay, I love this interior, but can you remove that chair? And you just go delete the chair or hide the chair, and they see that updated in the 360 as they go. And so this can give you a lot of creative power to share your vision with the world. Okay, so this is the same thing, changing the tint of the glass of the material. Same video, I just forwarded a little bit. Change the color, and you see how the RT updates and the VR Vive also updates. And from RT to GPU RT. As I mentioned in the beginning, V-Ray is versatile. V-Ray can render on CPU or on GPU. It depends on you. And with every version of V-Ray, with every service pack, we add more and more features to the GPU. More features get supported, get rendered in the GPU. So in this service pack, it's very important for the development of the whole GPU of V-Ray, since we've added quite a few optimizations to the GPU itself. And you can see from this graph here that starting from 3.0 to 3.5 now, this is one of the biggest, largest GPU updates we've created. And I think it will be quite useful to those of you who want to test or render on GPUs. Many studios nowadays have been doing that, transferring all of their pipeline on GPUs. So it all depends on you. In this service pack, you have quite a few GPU optimizations in the background, meaning that not only it's faster, but it's more memory efficient. So for now, if you have many maps in the scene, V-Ray can do mid mapping on demand, meaning that here is another video showing you what I mean, and I'll explain as we go. This basically means that normally this texture, this scene with its textures on 3.5. Okay, so all of this means that this scene, for example, on 3.5 with mid mapping on takes 350 megabytes of GPU RAM memory. While on 3.4 or without on-demand mid mapping, this scene takes 2 gigabytes of RAM, GPU RAM. So even This scenes like this sometimes were a problem to render before on a on less powerful graphics cards. Now with on-demand mip mapping, you can see the optimizations when it comes to GPU RAM consumption. This is just for your information, but there are also a few interesting additions to the GPU-S features. Aerial perspective on the GPU, great way of creating atmospheric volumetrics. The aerial perspective works as the thickening of the air when you look far, far away. So just very fast you can calculate this atmospheric haze or, dust or whatever you feel like and whatever you like. Now also on your graphics card. Okay, then another feature that's also available on the GPU now is the V-Ray Clipper. The V-Ray Clipper allows you to cut through geometry in render time without destroying the geometry. And those of you who are familiar with the Clipper, it was launched in V-Ray 3.0, I think. And after that it evolved a lot. So now on the CPU, you can do a custom mesh clipper and cut through the geometry in render time. On the GPU, the clipper is a plane for now, but this plane allows you to cut through specific parts of the geometry. You can do include, exclude. You can add a material to those, or you can use the object's materials. You can animate it. You can use more than one clippers and basically create super interesting graphics without destroying your geometry. So this is a non-destructive approach, allowing you to make fast changes and procedurally slice your geometry in half. Then another new feature on the GPU, support on GPU, and all of the features I've been mentioning, of course, are available on CPU if you don't want to use them on your GPU. But now you have stochastic flakes support on the graphics card rendering. This is super useful, especially for automotive design, product design, when you have flaky materials, metal materials, and so. Stochastic flakes are a great way of creating snow, car paint, so on. Basically, you have a large flake map that it's not tileable. There is no visible tiling. The map itself is super tileable. You also can do variation of color, of hues inside the flakes themselves. And if you're not familiar with this material, here is one example of a stochastic flakes render. But have in mind that it works great in a blend material. We'll use one material for base, stochastic flakes on top, and maybe if you want, you can add a glossy coat on top of that paint. But this is not the end of it. There are quite a few additional GPU optimizations, and you can see a few listed here. Interesting one is, for example, low GPU thread priority. Enabling this one allows you to use your computer while rendering on the GPU if you only have one graphics card. So it will slow down the rendering itself, since part of the resources of the GPU would be going into display and so on, but you'll be able to not have so much slowing down if you have only one graphics card. And yes, if somebody's wondering, V-Ray GPU can work on many graphics cards and you don't need to connect them in any particular way. V-Ray will automatically detect them. Then also directionality for the V-Ray lights, so you can point it to the specific direction you want, make shadows, render masks, and so on. If you want to know more, or you're more interested in GPU rendering in particular, you can go to our YouTube channel here, Chaos Group TV, and then from here you can go playlists. Sorry, my user interface is in Bulgarian since I'm in Bulgaria, but you can go to here, it's playlists, and here you have the playlist code V-Ray 3.5 for Max, new in RT GPU. So here you have quite a few interesting videos, very short ones. You can watch them in a quick break or do the whole playlist at once. So you can check those out, and again, the YouTube channel is a great resource for checking all additional tutorials and interesting things. Okay. Then, thanks to the GPU, we also have interactive lens effects. So now you don't need to wait for the whole image to finish rendering, but you can change the lens effect as V-Ray renders. So you don't have, let's open another scene. Before with the lens effects, we had to wait for the whole image to render and then add the lens effects. And if they didn't work, that meant pre-rendering, which can be quite the painful process, you know, going back and forward. So now you can adjust those while rendering. Let's start. So here we are rendering the scene, and if I enable lens effects, I can turn them on as we render, and we instantly see the result, and V-Ray is continuing to render. And this can help you adjust them as you go. But speaking of things you adjust as you go, those are one of my favorites, the new RT improvements. So with the new RT, you have quite a few possibilities, and I'll just show them in Max RT. Now you can adjust the resolution as you render. So I have the aspect ratio, but I can just adjust the frame buffer, and you can see from the top corner of the frame buffer itself, the whole rendering resolution is adjusting. So if you're just in the beginning stage and want to see a very little preview, a very little RT of your renderings, you can just, you know, drag it, make it smaller, and now start changing things in your scene. And then if you like what you see at any point, you can just drag it and it will rescale automatically. But this is not the only improvement in the RT. Another one is that if I go right click, I have three new options. The first one is select object. If I enable this, I can just click on the frame buffer on the rendering itself, and it will automatically select the geometry in the scene. And this is super useful, especially if you have a few objects in the far background. You're not sure which one you're seeing in the scene. You can just select it from the RT, from the frame buffer itself. Then you can also go get object material. Okay, and this one allows you to just pick the material the same way. Just by clicking in the frame buffer, you can pick the material and then, of course, change it as you like. So you don't need to browse, check the material, pick from Max itself, and so on. You can just do that all from here. And the third one is definitely last but not least, because it's set focus distance. Set focus distance allows us to set the focus point in the frame buffer itself. So if you have a lot of depth of field in this scene, I can go click in the background and now the background will be on focus. Same thing goes if I click on the foreground as well. And just like that, very easily you can adjust the right focus point. And all of this, all the features that I just showed you and all of the V-Ray features now come with online licensing. So if you're new to V-Ray and you want to purchase, you don't need a dongle, you don't need any hardware evaluation. You can just go and get it with online licensing, which allows you to easily, just by logging in, controlling your users, controlling your licenses, and using those. Don't worry, to those of you who have dongles, the dongle will still work and you still use the dongle. You can see that in the online licensing panel, there is also option dongle. So it would also be red with this one. So fully functioning. And something I maybe can mention with online licensing is that there is a free trial on chaosgroup.com. So you can test the free trial full functioning of 3.5 and check it out for yourselves. With 3.5, you get quite a few great optimizations that result in faster rendering, more reliability when it comes to rendering the image, new materials, and quite a few GPU optimizations.